Thanks. I pulled the car out of the garage and set it to another impatient Joe who gave me no more mind than a man gifted an outhouse his supper as the door slammed behind him. They come in, they speak to Freddie. Freddie pull a chewed, wet, unlit cigar out his mouth to holler at his Johnny. Gesturing my way. Figure it out was the meaning of the motion. Freddie was the owner and face at the garage. He'd inherited the business from a family what didn't make it back from the war. Had photos up on the wall of his office to remind everybody that he had the blood and the makings of heroes. Though he'd never seen a day of service that wasn't to his own self. No such thing as service in an import at Freddie's. Man about get himself lynched up pulling a Volkswagen through town. Thanks, I'd say, no true feeling of the word, to every Paul, Dick, and Pam that rolled their busted wheels over the hose at Freddie's shop. Ding, ding goes the hose, and I gotta jump out from whatever fix I'm under in order to make face for the wage. Gotta hop, too, like Jimmy Crow on a wire, and treated just as foul. Making the yes sirs for every Joe dinging their busted carriage over the line. Thanks, with a smile. Mashed thumbs, sore back, greased heels, and no more gratitude than slops for a pig, readying to get strung up. I learned to wrench thanks to Uncle Sam on a couple tours, and I was in service. There was no shortage of banger willies and needed tuning throughout that parade. Jeep, just enough essential parts. Simplicity, reliability was the idea. Just enough. Something easy for a guy like me to get behind. Never had my own wheels, seeing as I was enlisted the moments the Japs hit Hawaii. Once all was said and settled with that Nazi bastard burned in a ditch and all of us finally getting shipped home, the only thing I was good for was the one thing that I'd gotten fair at getting done. Coming back and finding a place to earn was tough. What with all the boys grabbing up the work. I must have been on the late boat back, seeing, I'd been through 3 towns and all the bars in them. Before finding a garage, needed hands here in this one. Couldn't afford to be picky, much less another corn for drink, so here I am, Johnny the Greaser. Most days after work, I found myself at Otto's. I know the barkeep Mickey. He's been around since St. Patrick was training snakes. A couple of the other boys by the name of Lou and Connor. We'd trade jokes we already heard with the rest of the nightbirds in town. Now, I wasn't much for gunning during the war, but I found I was a force to be reckoned with a beer and a pool cue in hand. Most of the regular boys who chalk a stick against me normally found their way to an empty paw. I don't hustle my guys because they know better. I just play straight 8 and happen to be more than all right at the sport. But the regular crew knew better than to chase away money to be made when they see it. Otto's was known to attract a certain type, and I was no stranger to welcoming faces to the queue. I say any man is welcome to crease their trousers upon the table when I'm holding it, so long as their pockets is lined the same color as the felt. Trouble was getting fresh meat on the board. Who didn't know I already got some skill? Occasionally, a neighboring coop's rooster would come through our backyard looking for a game, and I'd run him for a bit. Pop for a couple beers, have a few laughs before making the wager. Then, most of the time, they ain't too sore for losing. Well, most of the time. One of them nights I had to stay late at the shop. County Fair always brought fresh faces into town, more for the taking. I was Johnny Potatoes come fair time. If it weren't for Freddie lagging around longer than normal, I'd have been out of there in 2 deep already. By the time I punched out and got over to Ott's, the hands had already pushed half past happy hour, and the place was jumping. Plenty of the regular crowd, and of course, the aforementioned staples. More importantly, seemed a new number of fresh fish swam upriver to our little pond. I made my way to the end of the bar, ordered up double the usual to close the hour gap I'd missed, learned nearly immediate-like that these new boys holding the table went without skill and had already cleaned out everyone, including our resident leprechaun. Well, that wouldn't do. Boys and I raised a glass extra boisterously, and I made sure to hold my whiskey a little longer behind the teeth, even gargled a bit before swallowing. Spun off my stool and landed heels first and made a fairly straight line away from the bar. Headed over to chalk my name heavily on the board. Then I turned to offer a most breathy of introductions. I made sure they smelled the proud generations of Kentucky family distillers upon my salutation, while I propositioned the stakes. Hook, line, and sinker. Now I just had to pull them on the boat. The game was of the guy going by Roger. He was the Pat holding the purse when I first stepped in. No matter how many in the crowd, there was always a Pat needing to be marked as the patsy. Roger was theirs. I played poorly, with carefully calculated responses accompanied by loud lamentations of an obvious stick malfunction. Didn't take long. Roger easily took the game along with my initial investment. I must have been a certain level of convincing that night as they all laughed their way back to the chalks. Fish in boat. Crack! I ran that table like Minnesota Fats. Made quick work of Patsy and played the next two best I ever did. I walked away from the table, all the take in hand, and made my way back to the corner stool without a sway in my step. I no more than sat in front of my whiskey when a bottle spun past my head, shattered on the wall. Turns out it was one of them special occasions where the blade felt particularly sore. The three made their way to the bar in an awfully menacing manner. The remaining bar folks' banter faded just as Jerry Lee Lewis queued up on the jukebox. I clocked eyes with my boys as we turned up our glasses and dropped them with a clack. This was gonna be a good one. Pool cues were swinging, fists were flying, anything within reach was fair game. I couldn't help but smile as this was the most action Otto's had seen since the boys returned home. Mickey was ducked behind the bar as I threw Pat number 3 over top of it. Mick popped up and his bat, carved with the name Persuader, made certain that he stayed there. Connor took to scrapping in a way that'd make his ancestors proud. Well, he'd taken a like to Roger's buddy Carl and was turning up a bottle in celebration. I was locked up with the big fish Roger, and the last of the bystanders poured out the door. We was trading blows, 1 for 1, when all of a sudden, bang! Our ears were ringing in a whole other sort. We all turned to the door and saw Sheriff Prothero and Deputy Dewey with revolvers drawn and pointed our way. Jukebox skipping and busted pool lights swinging. We froze, mid-blow. 1 for the books. For my first time behind bars, this was an exceptionally awkward sitting. Bruised and beaten, but no more than our accompanying captors, me and the boys gloated in silence, staring at our cellmates. We was all still fueled up. Needle on the drunk tank read full. The night went by with a quiet appreciated by all. And just before daybreak was on us, Freddie came in. Instead of springing me, made certain I knew there was no place for me at his shop no more. Something about not needing a drunken fool for a man taking care of his business and the like. New boys couldn't help overhearing the exchange. After a while, Raj came over. Well, he needed a 4th for a job come next week. He got a proposition. Marked me as the John for the trigger. I was thinking, I got nothing else. Nothing going for me here, so why not? I could cut clean, and I could make my way ahead as a real taker. What's the worst that could happen?